The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with urgent whispers as the alien representatives took their seats. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a star map with a pulsing red dot. The Kargon have launched an all-out assault on the human colony of New Eden, announced the council speaker, his voice grave. Initial reports indicate heavy casualties on both sides, but most disturbingly, the humans appear to be celebrating. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the gathered diplomats. Celebrating in the face of annihilation was unthinkable. For eons, the many races of the galaxy had waged war. According to a strict code, soldiers fought and died while civilians were spared, resources were won or lost, and the vanquished would mourn their dead and eventually submit to their conquerors. This was the natural order. But the humans were different. They had burst onto the galactic stage mere centuries ago, their technology advancing at a breakneck pace that should have been impossible for their limited lifespans. And now this. Ambassador Kazak of the Taurian hegemony leaned forward in his seat, his scaly brow furrowed in consternation. As the Council's designated liaison to the humans, it fell to him to make sense of their inexplicable behavior. "Speaker, with your permission, I will travel to New Eden and assess the situation firsthand," Kazak said, rising to his feet. His tail swished behind him, betraying his agitation. The speaker nodded solemnly. "Go with haste, Ambassador. We must understand the human's mindset if we are to have any hope of brokering peace." Kazak bowed and strode from the chamber, his clawed feet clicking on the polished floor. 1,000 questions swirled in his mind as he boarded his diplomatic shuttle and set a course for New Eden. The journey took several days, even with the shuttle's advanced FTL drive. As they approached the human colony, Kazak could see the flashes of distant battles raging in space. The Kargon fleet was formidable, their ships bristling with advanced weaponry, but the humans were holding their own, their smaller, more agile craft darting and weaving through the enemy formations. Kazak's shuttle was hailed as soon as they entered New Eden's orbit. A stern human face appeared on the view screen, a male with close-cropped hair and piercing blue eyes. "This is Captain Dave Tanner of the UNSS Indestructible," the human said, his voice clipped and efficient. "State your business." Ambassador Kazak inclined his head respectfully. "Captain Tanner, I come on behalf of the Galactic Council to assess the situation and offer what aid we can. We have received disturbing reports of celebrations among your people even as the battle rages." To Kazak's surprise, Tanner threw back his head and laughed. "Celebrations? Is that what you call it?" He shook his head, still chuckling. "I suppose it must seem strange to you, Ambassador, but trust me, what you're seeing is no party. It's a time-honored tradition among our warriors, a way to steel ourselves for the fight ahead." Kazak's brow ridges drew together in confusion. "I'm afraid I don't understand, Captain. Among my people, and indeed most races we know of, the eve of battle is a somber time, a time for solemn contemplation and farewells to loved ones, not merriment." Tanner's smile faded, replaced by a look of grim determination. "I know it must seem callous to you, Ambassador, but you have to understand, for humans, war is not just a duty or a necessity, it's a part of who we are. It's in our blood." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "We fight not because we want to, but because we must. Because the alternative is unthinkable. And so, on the eve of battle, we gather together, we drink, we laugh, we remember what it is we're fighting for. And in doing so, we find the strength to face the horrors ahead." Kazak was silent for a long moment, trying to process what he had heard. It went against everything he had ever known about warfare. But perhaps that was the point. Perhaps the humans had evolved beyond the old ways, had found a new path to victory. "I believe I am beginning to understand, Captain," he said at last. "With your permission, I would like to come aboard and observe these pre-battle rituals for myself. The Council will want a full report." Tanner hesitated, then nodded. "Permission granted, Ambassador. But I warn you, it may not be what you're expecting." As the shuttle docked with the Indestructible, Kazak steeled himself for what lay ahead. He had faced many challenges in his long career as a diplomat, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The airlock hissed open, and he stepped out onto the human ship. The first thing that struck him was the noise, raucous laughter, pounding music, the clink of glasses. It was like stepping into a different world. Tanner was waiting for him, along with a young human female in a crisp uniform. "Ambassador Kazak, welcome aboard," Tanner said, shaking his hand firmly. "This is Lieutenant Jenna Robbins, my aide. She'll be your guide during your stay." Robin saluted smartly, her green eyes bright with intelligence. "An honor to meet you, Ambassador," she said. "If you'll follow me, I'll show you to your quarters." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Kazakh couldn't help but marvel at the controlled chaos around him. Everywhere he looked, humans were laughing, drinking, but roughhousing. It was so at odds with the grim reality of the battle raging just outside the hull. "Is it always like this before a fight?" he asked Robin as they walked. She glanced at him, a wry smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Not always," she admitted. "But when the stakes are this high, when we know we might not come back, it helps to blow off a little steam." Kazakh nodded slowly. "I think I'm beginning to see that," he said. "But still, the idea of celebrating in the face of death, it's so alien to me." Robin chuckled. "Alien. That's a good one." She sobered, her eyes growing distant. "I know it must seem strange to you, Ambassador, but try to see it from our perspective. We're facing an enemy that wants nothing less than our total annihilation. They won't stop until every last one of us is dead or enslaved." She paused, taking a deep breath. "In the face of that, what choice do we have but to find joy where we can, to celebrate the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood that will see us through the dark times ahead?" Kazakh was silent for a long moment, considering her words. "I think I understand," he said at last. "Your way is not my way, but perhaps that is what makes you strong. Perhaps that is what will see you through this crisis." Robin smiled, a fierce light in her eyes. "Damn straight it will," she said. "We're human. We don't know how to quit." As they reached his quarters, Kazakh couldn't help but feel a newfound respect for these strange, unyielding creatures. They were unlike any race he had ever encountered, and perhaps that was their greatest strength. He settled into his quarters, his mind awhirl with new insights and revelations. Tomorrow, the battle would be joined in earnest, and he had a feeling that, win or lose, the humans would face it with the same unbreakable spirit that had brought them this far. For the first time in his long career, Kazakh found himself truly uncertain of what the future might hold. But one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. The humans had seen to that. The next morning, Kazakh was awakened by the sound of klaxons blaring throughout the ship. He leapt from his bunk, his heart pounding in his chest. This was it. The battle had begun. He dressed quickly and made his way to the bridge, where Captain Tanner and his crew were already hard at work. The view screen showed a chaotic scene outside the ship, with Kargon and human vessels locked in a deadly dance of fire and maneuver. Status report. Tanner barked, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Shields holding at 80%, sir," a young officer replied, his fingers flying over his console. "But the Kargon are hitting us hard. We can't take much more of this." Tanner nodded grimly. "Divert all available power to the shields," he ordered. "And get me a firing solution on that lead battleship. We need to take it out before it can do any more damage." As the crew scrambled to carry out his orders, Tanner turned to Kazakh. "I hope you're ready for this, Ambassador," he said, "because it's about to get a whole lot worse before it gets better." Kazakh swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry. "I am ready, Captain," he said, trying to project a confidence he didn't feel. "I will do whatever I can to help." Tanner gave him a tight smile. "Good man," he said, "because we're going to need all the help we can get." The battle raged on for hours, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. The humans fought with a ferocity that Kazakh had never seen before, their ships darting and weaving through the enemy fire like acrobats. But the Kargon were relentless, their superior numbers slowly wearing down the human defenses. As the Indestructible shuddered under another barrage of enemy fire, Kazakh couldn't help but marvel at the calm professionalism of the human crew. They worked together like a well-oiled machine, each person knowing their role and executing it flawlessly. But even their skill and determination couldn't hold out forever. As the battle entered its 6th hour, the Indestructible took a direct hit to its engine room, sending the ship careening out of control. "Damage report," Tanner shouted, gripping the arms of his chair as the deck bucked beneath him. "Main power offline, sir," the engineer reported, his voice tight with strain. "We're running on emergency backups only. Shields are down to 20%. Tanner cursed under his breath. "Reroute all available power to the shields," he ordered. "And get me a status report on the rest of the fleet." The news was grim. Over half of the human ships had been destroyed or disabled, and the Kargon were closing in for the kill. It seemed that all hope was lost. But then, just as the enemy was about to deliver the final blow, a miracle happened. A massive fleet of ships dropped out of hyperspace, their hulls gleaming in the light of the system's star. It was the Galactic Council, come to the aid of their human allies. Kazak watched in awe as the Council ships tore into the Kargon fleet, their advanced weaponry making short work of the enemy vessels. Within minutes, the tide of battle had turned, and the Kargon were in full retreat. As the last enemy ship fled the system, a cheer went up from the human crew. They had done it. Against all odds, they had emerged victorious. Tanner slumped back in his chair, a look of exhausted relief on his face. "Stand down from battle stations," he said, his voice hoarse. "And get me a damage report on the double." As the crew set to work assessing the damage and tending to the wounded, Kazak approached the captain. "That was incredible," he said, shaking his head in amazement. "I have never seen anything like it." Tanner gave him a weary smile. "That's humanity for you," he said. "We may not always win, but we never give up." Kazak nodded slowly, a newfound respect for these strange, indefatigable creatures welling up inside him. "I can see that now," he said. "Your people are truly remarkable." Captain Tanner chuckled. "We like to think so," he said. "But the truth is, we're just doing what we have to do to survive, same as any other species in the galaxy." As the Indestructible limped back to New Eden for repairs, Kazak couldn't help but reflect on all that he had seen and learned. The humans were a mystery, a contradiction wrapped in an enigma. They were fierce warriors, yet they celebrated in the face of death. They were individuals, yet they worked together as one. And perhaps most importantly, they had a strength of spirit that set them apart from any other race Kazak had ever encountered. A stubborn refusal to accept defeat, even in the darkest of times. It was a quality that he found himself admiring, even as it baffled him. And he knew that whatever the future might hold, the humans would face it with the same unbreakable will that had seen them through this crisis. As the ship docked at the New Eden spaceport, Kazak prepared to take his leave of the humans. He had seen what he had come to see, and now it was time to return to the Council with his report. But as he made his way to the airlock, he was stopped by Lieutenant Robbins. "Leaving so soon, Ambassador?" she asked, a mischievous glint in her eye. Kazak hesitated, torn between his duty and his newfound fascination with these strange creatures. "I suppose I could stay a bit longer," he said at last, "if you think it would be helpful." Robbins grinned. "Oh, I think it would be very helpful," she said. "In fact, I insist on it. You haven't even seen the best part of New Eden yet." And with that, she took his arm and led him out into the bustling spaceport. It was a world unlike any Kazak had ever seen, a vibrant, chaotic place full of life and energy. As they walked, Kazak couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building inside him. He had come to New Eden seeking answers, but he had found something far more valuable. He had found a people worth fighting for, a people who would never give up, no matter the odds. And as he looked out over the vibrant, chaotic sprawl of the human colony, he knew that he would never see the galaxy the same way again. The humans had changed everything, and he had a feeling that they were just getting started. In the days that followed, Kazak found himself drawn deeper and deeper into the world of the humans. He toured the bustling streets of New Eden, marveling at the vibrant mix of cultures and traditions that had taken root on this distant colony world. He visited the great halls of learning, where human scholars debated the finer points of philosophy and science with a passion that bordered on the fanatical. And he witnessed firsthand the incredible resilience of the human spirit as the colonists worked tirelessly to rebuild what had been lost in the battle. But perhaps most importantly, he came to understand the true nature of the bond that existed between the humans. It was a bond born of shared struggle, of common purpose, a bond that transcended the boundaries of race and culture, uniting them in a way that Kazak had never seen before. And as he prepared to return to the Council with his final report, he knew that he would carry this understanding with him for the rest of his days. The journey back to the Council chambers seemed to pass in a blur, his mind awhirl with all that he had seen and learned. And when he finally stood before the assembled delegates, he found himself struggling to find the right words. "Esteemed members of the Council," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I have returned from the human colony of New Eden with a message of great importance." He paused, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "The humans are not like us," he said at last. "They are a people forged in the crucible of adversity, tempered by the fires of war. They celebrate in the face of death not because they do not fear it, but because they refused to let it define them. A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber, but Kazakh pressed on. I have seen the strength of their spirit, the depth of their resolve, and I tell you now, they are a force to be reckoned with, a force that will shape the destiny of the galaxy for generations to come. He looked out over the sea of faces, seeing the doubt and uncertainty etched in their features. I know that many of you fear the humans, that you see them as a threat to the established order. But I tell you this, they are not our enemies. They are our greatest allies, our staunchest defenders against the darkness that threatens to engulf us all. Kazakh's voice rose to a crescendo, his words ringing out like a clarion call. So I ask you, members of the Council, to stand with the humans, to forge a new alliance, a new understanding between our peoples. For in the face of the challenges that lie ahead, we will need their strength, their courage, their invincible spirit. As he finished speaking, a stunned silence fell over the chamber. And then, slowly at first, but with gathering momentum, the delegates began to applaud. It was a sound unlike any Kazakh had ever heard, a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the council itself. And as he stood there, basking in the glow of their approval, he knew that he had done something truly remarkable. He had brought the humans and the council together, had forged a bond that would endure for generations to come. In the years that followed, Kazakh would often look back on that moment with a sense of pride and wonder. He had been a witness to history, had played a small but vital role in shaping the course of galactic events. But more than that, he had been changed by his encounter with the humans. They had shown him the true meaning of courage, of resilience in the face of adversity. They had taught him that the bonds of friendship and common purpose could overcome any obstacle, could light the way through even the darkest of times. And as he watched the alliance between the humans and the council grow and flourish, he knew that he had been a part of something truly special, something that would endure long after he was gone, a legacy that would inspire generations yet to come. For the humans had shown him the truth of their most cherished saying, the words that had sustained them through countless trials and tribulations, the words that had become the rallying cry of a people, a species, a galaxy united. Humanity never gives up.